Ms. Nelson, I think it's important that you, the voters, make this decision. It is up to you to determine who do you think is most qualified to represent you. I don't engage into the national politics theater of what you see. We don't do that. I am a public servant serving you. I'm following the ethics of what God would have us to do, and it is your choice to determine who you want to represent you, so I don't have any questions for her. Mine is to you to make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Nelson, do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question for Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, recently you said in my presence that if it's not broke, don't fix it. Would you please explain that?
Good question. Out of the 7 years that I've been a public servant for the City of Augusta, District 125, I've served with distinction. I've been on point. I'm ahead of the game. I'm a Six Sigma black belt. I have 3 degrees, one business management from South Carolina State, one community college of the Air Force in aviation management, a third from the Hull School of Business at Augusta State, a BBA in marketing and finance. I'm fluent in 2 foreign languages, Spanish and Turkish. I also am a project manager, a PMP. I also am a accredited aviation executive, and I've been ahead of the curve, and I will continue to be ahead of the curve, and I've worked fervently in this community. So again, just since you asked that question, if you look at my track record as a public servant, if you go in and out of Augusta Regional Airport, you look on the side of the wall, you'll see my name, because I was a part of the team that helped build the terminal at Augusta Regional Airport. If you go downtown to Christ Community Health Center on Green Street, if you're underinsured or uninsured, I was on the first board of directors to ensure that Christ Community is right downtown in the heart of the urban district. I'm the former president of the Old Town Neighborhood Association, so I've worked fervently in the community for a number of years prior to becoming your public servant. So my point was, God does not just call the qualified, He qualifies them that are called. That's why you don't fix what's not broken.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Now we will ask some questions from the crowd. Anybody have a question really quick for her? Go ahead, Ms. Evans.
Ms. Nelson, can you explain how is it broken, or, unrepairable?
Yeah. The bacon is not coming down from Atlanta to Augusta, Georgia. We are supposed to be the second largest city, and we deserve so much better.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, up for our next question. And this is for both of the candidates. Of course, you'll have the first option to answer.
Thank you.
All right, so what are your plans for Regency Mall?
With our infrastructural initiatives, and the county commission is dealing with that right now. Augusta is an old city. We have pipes that have been down there since before we can probably remember. The focus is on refurbishing our infrastructure from the inner city on out. And so that's what is happening now. We've never had a problem like that you see in Flint, Michigan, because above all else, the leadership in the city, the mayor and the county commission, would not do that to the city of Augusta. This administration has not done that. And we have not had that problem, so it is important that we not create a problem when there is no problem.
Okay. Ms. Nelson, would you like to?
As a homeowner and a taxpayer, that's a good question. I am concerned. When I'm elected as your state legislator, I don't want to micromanage our local government, but I need to be there so we can partner and get done what's best for all of us.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to rebuttal or have any response to that question? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carissa Rodriguez. This is to Mr.
Smith.
Okay, you said that there was no problem in terms of the water here, but during some undergrad, we had to do a project, and that project was on Hyde Park, and there was a water problem there. So for me, in terms of the factories and all of the excuse me.
It's quite all right. Take your time. Take your time.
Industrial, site, I don't know what that area called.
Environmental, that was an environmental nightmare is what it
Yes,
was.
exactly. So could that happen someplace else in Augusta, Georgia?
Because of what happened in Hyde Park, I'm so glad that you brought that point up. You helped me out, dear sister. I was instrumental, along with Reverend Utley, in getting the first brownfields initiatives here in Augusta, Georgia. Again, bloom where you planted. I helped ensure that people understood the difference between a categorical exclusion and a full-blown environmental assessment. And what that region had gotten for years were what's called CAT-X, categorical exclusions. But an environmental assessment was able to ascertain the degree of decrepitness and the degree of contamination so that, again, as a policymaker, that's why you see the people finally getting moved out, because of the facts that were provided, and they were not unsubstantiated, they were codified, they were documented, they were the truth, and they were factual. So you probably won't see that again because of the catastrophe that occurred over on the Goldberg yards for probably 40 years. So we won't probably see that again in light of where we are.
Our school since 2007, 2008. This is nothing new. We know that they want to take over our schools and make them charter schools. So I want to ask my opponent, he voted for them to start he voted yes for the Charter School Commission. So I want to ask him, how does he feel that has led to the state looking to take over our schools?
The Charter School Commission, I tend to disagree that I don't think I voted for that. But to answer your question about charter schools and failing schools here, charter schools is not a problem. Charter schools as a whole is not a problem. The problem is the charter school bill that was presented, which I did not vote for, is a bill that, again, puts the authority in the hands of the governor. And I do not agree with putting that authority into the hands of the governor. The governor appoints the Charter School Commission. The governor doesn't have to be any kind of a vote by anyone, and they run the charter school systems across the state. If a local school system decides they vote not to adopt a charter school that has presented their necessary paperwork, that local school can now go to that charter school commission and they can overrule what the local board has turned down.
Begin the process to change the charter of Augusta. So, Representative Howard.
No.
All righty then, Mr. Hill.
No.
All right. Well, there's your answer. Neither candidate will begin the process to change the charter in Augusta.
All right. Fortunate to have been a servant to you all for 25 years in the military. One of the things the military has taught me as a leader to work across the board with everyone. LGBT, white, black, male, female, all nationalities. So as a leader, in getting the job done, I can assure you that I will work across the aisle. As a commander in the military, I've led Republicans as a battalion XO, where I was second in charge for a 1,000-man company, a battalion. I've led Republicans. I know how to work with different religions.
I grew up right here in Augusta, and I grew up in a poor neighborhood. Poor maybe in monetary dollars, but in spirit we were rich. It was a black community, predominantly black, all black, and we grew up, we grew our business, and we began to get really good at what we were doing. And that expanded our territory we began to see it wasn't just black folk that needed furniture done, it was white folk too. So you had to learn to work with them. I come up in a school that was all predominantly black, and I learned to work with people from that experience.